So why is China collecting American DNA? I mean, that question alone sounds like it's been ripped straight from a spy movie script. But what we're about to uncover is very real. And the answer? Well, it has huge implications for national security, for the future of medicine, and for what privacy even means anymore.
And it all kicks off with something incredibly personal and, seemingly innocent, a simple prenatal test. Millions of expecting parents get these done all over the world to check on their baby's health, looking for things like Down syndrome. But what if that simple blood test was also doing something else? What if it was sending your data somewhere you never, ever imagined?
Right at the center of all this is a company called BGI Group. You might not have heard of them, but they are an absolute titan in the world of genomics. They sell these popular prenatal tests called nifty tests, and they operate on a massive global scale. They're everywhere.
So, what are we really talking about when we say genetic data? Well, according to BGI's own documents, this isn't just info like your name or address. We're talking about the literal blueprint of you. It's the unique code that holds secrets about your health, your family's health, your inherited traits. It is, without a doubt, the most sensitive, most personal data that exists.
Okay, so let's trace the journey of a single sample. It's pretty straightforward. It starts with a patient, maybe somewhere in Europe, giving a blood sample. That sample gets shipped off to a BGI lab to be analyzed. But then, and this is the part you really need to pay attention to, the genetic data from that sample gets uploaded to the China National Gene Bank. This isn't just any database. It's one of the largest in the world, and BGI helps manage it for the Chinese government. Now you might be thinking, what about the privacy policy? And yeah, on the surface, BGI's policy looks reassuring. It says they won't share your data without consent. But then there's a little word, unless. Unless it's considered directly relevant to public health or significant public interest. And that's a loophole big enough to drive a truck through, because it begs the question, who gets to decide what's in the public interest?
And right here, this is where the transformation happens. What starts as a private healthcare choice for one person, once it's collected, analyzed, and stored in a massive database, it's no longer just personal data. It becomes a strategic national asset. This incredible library of human DNA has immense value for research, for the economy, and, as we're about to see, for the state.
You know, this whole model of collecting massive amounts of data isn't some new idea they're trying out on the world. To really get what's happening, you have to look at how these exact same tools are already being used inside China itself. It's part of a much, much bigger playbook. 70 million. Just let that number sink in for a second. That's how many Chinese men and boys the government has targeted for a huge national DNA database. And let's be crystal clear here. These are not criminals. This isn't about solving crimes that have already happened. This is about building a proactive, genetic map of the entire male population. And the way they do it is incredibly powerful. It's a technique called YSTR profiling. Since the Y chromosome gets passed down from father to son almost unchanged, if they have one man's DNA, they can essentially map his entire paternal family tree. They can identify his father, his brothers, his sons, his uncles, all his male cousins. It's basically a genetic dragnet.
So, we've got this civilian company collecting DNA from all over the world, and then we have the state building this massive genetic map at home. You might think they're separate things, but they're not. They are deeply connected by a critical government policy, something called military-civil fusion.
And military-civil fusion isn't just some abstract idea. It's an official national strategy. It legally requires private tech companies, like BGI, to share everything, their data, their tech, their research, with the Chinese military, the People's Liberation Army, or PLA. That wall that usually exists between civilian and military, in China, it's been deliberately torn down. Now, this isn't just a theory. We have proof. There are actual published academic papers out there, co-authored by BGI's own scientists and PLA military researchers. And what are they setting together? Things like the genetics of high-altitude sickness. Research that, you can imagine, is pretty useful if you want your soldiers to operate in mountainous regions. So what is the PLA actually looking for in all this data? Well, investigations have shown they're interested in things like identifying genetic traits to make better soldiers who can handle extreme environments. They're also studying the specific genetic markers of ethnic groups like Tibetans and Uyghurs. And then there's this really unsettling goal, cited in their joint research, improving population quality, a term that has some very dark historical echoes of eugenics.
And so, the map is complete. The whole journey is now crystal clear. A blood sample from a patient anywhere in the world goes to a BGI lab. That data is uploaded to the China National Gene Bank. And then, through the official policy of military-civil fusion, that data can end up in the hands of PLA military researchers.
The path is direct.
So that brings us to the biggest question of all. What is the end game here? Why go to all this trouble? Building a global DNA library on this scale is a monumental effort. So why is it such a high strategic priority? What are they planning to do with it?
And the answer is really two-sided, like a coin. On one side, you have this incredible promise, precision medicine. If you have the world's biggest DNA library, you could dominate the future of the pharmaceutical industry, creating drugs tailored for specific genetic groups. But on the flip side, there's a terrifying peril, precision lethality. The theoretical risk that the same data could be used to engineer bioweapons, pathogens that could target people with specific genetic markers, which can often correlate with race or ethnicity.
It's that darker side, that potential peril, that has set off major alarm bells in Washington. The U.S. National Counterintelligence and Security Center has put out official warnings saying that China's collection of genomic data poses a direct and serious threat to American national security.
And this isn't just talk. We've seen real action. The U.S. response has been ramping up over the years. It started with penalties back in 2018. Then in 2021, after a huge Reuters investigation blew the lid off the military links, things really escalated. By 2023, the Department of Commerce had put BGI subsidiaries on its trade blacklist, explicitly calling them a national security risk.
All of this really leaves us with one final, pretty profound question to think about. In this new era of global competition, maybe the next great battlefield isn't in space or in cyberspace. Maybe it's much closer to home. Maybe it's inside our own cells. Has our DNA, the very code that makes us who we are, become the world's most valuable and most vulnerable strategic resource?